now we'll start on our lesson on punctuations. I'm going to split this up between 2 weeks. So we'll be able to like get I guess a better understanding of all of these. So these are our punctuation symbols that we usually use when during English writing. So we have a comma, a semicolon, a colon, a full stop or a period, an exclamation mark, a question mark, apostrophe, and quotes. And those will be going over the top 2 rows today. So we'll go over the basics first. So the question mark is just a punctuation mark that indicates an interrogative clause or phrase. So an interrogative clause could be, you're asking a question, or you're asking for clarification, or you're just expressing confusion. Okay. And then, so an example like that would be, what is the weather like today? Okay, and then exclamation mark, exclamation mark is used at the end of the sentence or a short phrase which expresses a very strong feeling. So you could use that to express like surprise or shock. And then we also have a period. So a period is a symbol, a period symbol is a punctuation mark that expresses the end of a sentence or abbreviation. All right. And so let's make some example sentences really quick with these with that question mark, exclamation mark, or period.
What is your name?
Yeah, what is your name? That's okay. Now, can someone give me something that they would say if they found something surprising? And then what punctuation mark would you use?
Great.
Yeah. What about a period? Can someone give me a sentence with a period in it, please? Could be any sentence.
The dog is very cute. The dogs are very cute.
The dog is very cute. Or the dogs are. So the singular we use is, and then multiple we use are. Good job. All right. Can we get one more sentence this time? Let's do a short paragraph. I want you guys to use all 3. So a question mark, an exclamation mark, and a period.
When is your birthday?
All right. And then when is your birthday? All right, I think we got these down so far. They're pretty simple. So we'll move on to the next one. And that's the commas. So there's 2 different ways that we can use commas in English. So the first one is to separate independent clauses when they're not joined by any of the 7 coordinating conjunctions. And remember, conjunctions are words that are like and, but, for, or, nor, so, or yet. So does everyone understand conjunctions? If not, we can quickly go over them. Just type in the chat if you guys understand conjunctions. If not, it's totally fine. We can go over them.
Teacher, we make example for it.
No, I was just wondering if you guys understood what conjunctions were. So those are like and, but, for, or. So if you understand, you can just give me a nod or a thumbs up, or just type it in the chat. I just want to make sure so it doesn't get like confusing moving on.
Teacher, excuse me, I have kind of a doubt about the second point that is mentioned in the representation. Use commas after introductory A clauses, B phrases. Can you please just go over that?
Absolutely. So what they mean by introductory clauses, phrases, or words is things that we use. So it's basically any form of like introduction to anything in a sentence, right? So for example, in the beginning would be considered an introductory clause, right? So that's something that we use to either introduce like a topic or even to introduce like ourselves. So for example, hello would be considered an introductory phrase. So hello, my name is Sonara. That would be an example of when we'd use a comma right after an introductory phrase, right? stuff like that. So again, it doesn't always have to be like introductory. We could also use it after words like therefore, therefore, or am I spelling this right? I hope so. Okay. Therefore, the cat, I don't know. We'll just say, so yeah, so it could be any form of like introductory clause, phrase or words, but again, it doesn't it could also be like words like for example. So I guess that would be considered like therefore and for example would still be considered like an introductory clause, since they are like I guess words that kind of precede a sentence, but like but tell you like I guess the general idea of the sentence. So like if you're using therefore, it would just be to like therefore is like an equivalent to because. So you could say, I don't know, like the cat was feeling really sick that day, therefore the cat couldn't go to work, something like that. And then we also have for example. So like for example shows that we are basically giving an example to the sentence that was before that one, right? So for example, I don't know, the okay, we'll just do that. So for example, the sun is very hot. So like a sentence before that could be uh stars are made of gas and they are very hot. For example, the sun is very hot. So does everyone understand the use of commas after an introductory clause, phrase, or word? Maybe this might make it more or less confusing.
I can understand it, teacher. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So does anyone want to give awesome. Does anyone want to give me an example of using commas to separate independent clauses? So for example, this would be I love ice cream, but my brother prefers chocolate. George traveled to Spain. Oh, and then this right here is basically another way that we can use commas, which is basically to separate listed words, right? And so the way that we'd use this to separate listed words is to basically every single word before the last word. So like good, bad, happy, and sad. Right, that would be one example to use it. So right before the last word, you can use like words like basically conjunction words, right? So like and or yeah. So the commas can also be used to separate a list that you use in a sentence. So can someone give me an example of the first one? Let's try to put separate independent clauses together.
I like dogs, but my sister is like cats.
I like dogs, yeah, but my sister likes cats. Good job. So you can see that these two clauses can be its own sentence, but they're joined together by the comma. So I like dogs, but my sister likes cats. Can someone give me another example using a different conjunction? So we can use and this time. Can someone give me an example? So this is for like this could be actually that's it, that's separate.
I painted my room blue, white, and pink.
Yes, that would be an example of using lists, right? Using commas to separate, I guess, members of a list. So we'll do I painted my room white, pink, and blue. All right. And can someone give me one more example of the first one using a different conjunction other than but? So remember, these are our example conjunctions up here. Like, for example, my friend said he's studying hard, but he's still failing, or
Teacher,
like,
excuse me.
yeah.
Can I give an example?
Yeah, of course.
I like chocolate and vanilla.
Yeah, of course. That would use a comma. That would use a conjunction, but that wouldn't use a comma because remember, it doesn't have two separate independent clauses. So it would when I write the sentence, it would be like this. So I like chocolate and vanilla ice cream. It wouldn't be joined by it wouldn't be joined by like a single comma, sorry. Because they aren't in there, sorry, it doesn't have two separate independent clauses. And remember, independent clauses are basically a clause that can be used as a sentence by itself. So for example, in the example that Nicola gave us, I like dogs can be its own sentence, and but my sister likes cats can also be its own sentence, and then it's joined together by the comma. So can someone give me an example of or actually, sorry, you can see that my sister likes cats would be an independent clause, and then I like dogs would be its own independent clause. Right, and then so and it's combined with the comma and then the conjunction. All right, so can someone give me an example of combining basically two independent clauses and then and then using a comma and a conjunction to combine them, please?
I think dog is brave, but it is not brave.
Yeah, that would be an example. So in his example, it would be I think dogs are brave, comma, but, which is our comma and conjunction. I think dogs are brave, but sorry, but they are not, or yeah, they are not brave. I forgot the exact sentence you said. So you can see that these two can be their own separate sentences. So using that structure, can anyone give me another example using a different conjunction? So not using but, you can cancel that one out. So not using this, can someone give me an example of can someone give me an example of using a comma to combine two sentences, using a conjunction and a comma? Sorry, I might so just use basically just this, right? So that's the comma and that's our conjunction. Go ahead. Oh yes, could you give us an example using like and or for?
I used motor for make a motorboat.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that one more time?
I used a motor for to make motorboat.
Yeah, so that would be a full sentence, but it wouldn't be combined with so a comma, right? Because remember, it has to have on either side of the comma, there should be two full sentences. So I'll give you guys another example. So my mom likes cars, comma, and so comma, and then my and is the conjunction. And my dad likes yeah, I guess motorcycles. Okay.
Okay.
So remember, my mom likes cars can be its own sentence. And then my dad likes motorcycles can be its own sentence. And then this is the most important part. So that is our, oh, geez, sorry. This is a bad highlighter color. We'll just use red. So we need to use that comma, and then we need to follow it with a conjunction, right? So can someone give me one example of two independent clauses, which remember can be their own sentences separately, and then you want to combine them with a comma and then one conjunction. Okay, let's try Channelie, would you like to give it a shot?
The dogs.
Mm-hmm.
You can dance or sing in this competition.
Okay, let's work with this sentence. So I like to use the conjunction or which is or, but remember we need to combine it with the comma. So you can dance can be its own, and then we can do comma or let's say so that would be it's their own two separate sentences, right? So you can dance or you can sing in this competition. That would be an example of when we use a comma. But again, we can simplify it like the way Channelie said, and because the sentence that she said isn't grammatically incorrect, but we're trying to switch it so we could try to implement like a comma in it, right? But you can dance or you can sing in this competition isn't like a grammatically wrong sentence. But in this example, we're trying to use commas, okay? So if we want to use commas, we need to have two independent clauses on either side of the comma. All right. And I like the examples that we have for our separate lists. So there you go. All right. And does everyone understand how to use commas after introductory clauses, phrases, or words? Can someone give me an example? Yeah. Sorry, Nithula, go ahead. If not, it's okay. Asari, could you give me an example of using a comma after an introductory clause? If not, it's okay. We can sorry, Nithula, do you want to go? I see you speaking, but you're still muted.
Teacher, can we get good morning, everybody?
Yeah. So, good morning, everybody. Good job. All right. And I think we might still need a little bit of work on using commas to separate independent clauses. So we'll go over that again next week. All right, so let's talk about punctuation when it comes to semicolons and colons. So in writing, we use a colon essentially to introduce ourselves, or I'm sorry, not to, to introduce an explanation right before the summary of your point and before a list, or when you mean as an example. In these situations, an independent clause precedes the colon. So for example, my bucket list is short. Take a train ride through Canada to the West Coast and visit several countries in South America. So in this example, we can see that an independent clause goes right before the colon, right? And then we can use we can introduce like an explanation, which is what we did here, or a summary of your point and before a list. So so another example of this would be I painted my room would be its own independent clause, right? So I'm going to use Asari's example from earlier. So I painted my room. You could do using red, blue, and white. Okay. So can someone give me another example of how to use a colon in a sentence, please? So when you're giving me the example, just say my bucket list is short, colon, take a train ride through Canada to the West Coast and visit several countries. Okay.
Dog's favorite foods.
So we could say my dog has a lot of
Dog
favorite food. colon, and then we could use meat and
Cake.
that's a good example. So my dog has a lot of favorite foods: meat, apples, and carrots. My dog likes to eat carrots. I don't know if yours does. I don't know. So my dog has a lot of favorite foods. And then we use this example shows that we use a colon right before a list. Right? And then my dog has a lot of favorite foods could be its own sentence. Therefore, it's an independent clause. Okay? All right. Now, let's start with a semicolon. A semicolon is mostly used to link in a single sentence two independent clauses that are closely related in thought. When a semicolon is used to join two or more ideas slash parts of a sentence, those ideas are then given equal position or rank. Okay, so let's see these examples down here. So some people write with a word processor, others write with a pen or pencil. So these can both be their own independent clauses, right? But they're joined together using a semicolon. All right. So however they choose to write, people are allowed to make their own decisions. Semicolon. As a result, many people swear by their writing methods. All right. So does anyone want to give me an example? Okay, I'll start us off. Chanley, do you have like an something you'd like to start us off with? So remember, like independent clause is basically it can be its own sentence.
Teacher,
Mhm.
can we get this sentence? I like apple because apples are very tasty.
Apples are very, we can use tasty. Are very tasty. And then do you know what else you'd like to on the other side of the semicolon? Actually, we could I like apples. And then if you want, you mean did you mean to do this? So like I like apples, semicolon, apples are very tasty. All right, so this would be
Excuse me, teacher.
yeah.
I have a problem about use of colon. Is this
Yeah.
sentence correct? There are two choices: run away or fight.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, that's a great example. So there are two choices, will be its own independent clause, and then run away or fight would be I guess it might be used as a, I guess we could say as a list, not sure. But anyways, this is a great way to use to use a colon in a sentence. All right, let's move on to apostrophe. So there are like three different ways that we can use apostrophes in English. So or I mean they serve, sorry, it's not three, two basic functions, which is to basically show position and then indicate that letters have been removed to form a contraction, right? And so let's start with the first example, which is using an apostrophe plus S to show that one person slash thing owns or is a member of something. Right? So Amy's ballet class. Can someone give me an explanation of, oh, sorry. Can someone give me an explanation of what that means?
It is Amy's ballet class.
Yes, exactly. So it is Amy's ballet class. And then when we're using plural forms, so my parents' bedroom, because you have two parents, right? So the parents would be plural, and then you'd use the apostrophe after the S when it comes to like giving a plural ownership of things. So Amy is a singular person, so we can use apostrophe S. But since parents are multiple people, it would be the parents with an apostrophe at the end of yes. Okay. So if it's so singular word, then we just use the apostrophe s. And then if we use can also use plural, which is the s and then followed by the apostrophe. All right. So Dave and Alice's car, which means both Dave and Alice own the car. And then we also have Tim's and Jane's trips. These refer to two separate trips because remember the the apostrophe display shows that it's both that the trips is owned by both Tim and Jane. So that means both Tim and Jane took two separate trips, right? Does everybody understand that? Can someone give me an example of an example similar to two people like having possessions to kind of like Sonara's and Seneca's dog, or Sonara's and Seneca's dog. So which means it would be referring to two separate dogs, right? But if I was going to say Sonara and Seneca's dog, then it would be like or we'd be referring to a single dog. So can someone give me an example using any of these?
Mother's and father's home.
Yeah. So mother's and father's coats, right? So that's referring to two separate coats. So one of the coats is for your mother. Ravine. Okay.
Cool.
And then can someone give me another example? Can someone give me one more example of an apostrophe that's used to show a person owns that thing or is a member of that thing?
Netula and his brother not here yet.
Yeah, so that is a correct sentence, but we want to try to use an apostrophe on it, right? So we could say I'm not sure, maybe it's remember it shows some like ownership, so we can still use Netula as an example. So Netula's car isn't working, and we'll talk about the apostrophe to combine words later. So let me change that to is not working, so he couldn't go to Yasa's house. Does that make sense? So remember, Netula owns the car, and then Yasas owns the house. So that's like another example of using apostrophes to show ownership. Asari, would you like to go?
Yes, teacher, I would like to go. I want to give an example to the structure with a shared item.
Yeah.
Me and my brother owns the computer.
So you could say in English, you don't me and my brothers. You could say my brothers and I. It's really weird, sorry. My brother and I. You could use share a computer. I wouldn't really use eyes in this example, so I share a computer could be one. Or you could say Asiri and his brother's computer. Asiri and his brother's computer is blue. I don't know. Really cool. There you go. So that would be an example of combined ownership. So Asiri and his brother would be the owner, just shown by the apostrophe s. All right. So now we can also use two words to make a contraction, which is to combine two words together, right? So for example, we have they and they have, which is combined to they've. and then are or are not, which is combined to aren't, and then they and they and will, which is combined to they'll. And then those are combined using an apostrophe. So instead of saying they've, I don't know, or they have an awesome school, you could say, remember, and this is like informal. So if you're writing like an essay for English, or just in an English speech, try to stay away from contractions, which is just combining two words together. Just if you're gonna say they have or they an awesome school, it's more informal. So don't use like contractions, especially in like essays or speeches or anything that requires you to be more professional. And so they aren't. So they are not nice. We could just say they aren't nice. So it's basically combining those two together, right? So can someone give me one more example of a contraction that they've seen in English before?
I am Netula. I'm Netula.
Sorry, one more time.
I am Netula. I'm
Mhm.
Netula. I'm Netula.
Yes, I'm methyl. Sorry. You were cutting off a little bit. I'm sorry. So I apostrophe am would be I am, right? So we just took out the A in this example. So an example would of using I'm in a sentence would be I'm methyl. Great job. Okay, can someone give me one more example of the use of a conjunction, or sorry, a contraction in the English language?
They will come tomorrow. They will come tomorrow.
Yeah. So they'll come tomorrow. Oh my gosh. All right. And can someone give me one more example?
We have a nice car. We have a nice car.
Yeah. So we have can be weave. So we could say we have a nice car. Yes, we could use this, but again, remember it's really informal. So when you're speaking, try to also stay away from apostrophes, because it's sometimes it might be harder for people to understand. But again, it's just mostly for informal text or like Twitter speech. All right, so let's do some examples. So using what we've learned so far, can you guys give me like the correct punctuation for this sentence?
Question mark.
Yep, there is a question mark at the end. And then there's,
Excuse me, there's a comma.
yes, perfect.
Excuse me. Is there a supermarket nearby?
Yes, perfect. And remember, excuse me would be considered our introductory clause. Perfect. All right. So can someone give me the correct punctuation for this sentence?
Full stop.
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time?
Is there a full stop?
Yes, there is a full stop at the very end. And then I also heard Asteri say comma, and yes, there's a comma after the yes. And then there's one more thing over here. Can someone
Apostrophe.
yes, perfect, an apostrophe. And do you know what this combines? There and is, right? Awesome, great job. And how about this one?
Question mark.
Yep, perfect.
Teacher,
All right.
can you contract the how do I get there? How do into how I get there
Yeah,
contracted?
yes. So it can also be how would I get there? Good job. Okay, now let's work on D. We might be running out of time. So after this, I think we should move on to our conversation practice or our monologue practice, and then that'll be it for today's class, okay?
There is a full stop.
Full stop. And then there's another comma in this sentence. Can someone tell me where?
After the traffic,
Traffic
there is
lights.
a comma.
Traffic lights.
At the traffic lights, comma, take the first left turn and go straight. Perfect. Okay. Let's move on to monologue practice. So we can do this part next week, but essentially I just wanted you to describe the characters that you see on the screen, and you can describe their emotions that they're feeling, their hair color, their hair texture, stuff like that. But we could do monologue practice for right now. So for the last 10 minutes before we do our homework, I want you to answer either of these prompts. So you can give us a quick speech on either the first prompt, which is assume you could work with the resources the world has right now. What are some solutions you have to solve world hunger? And then the second prompt is you have to survive on a deserted island for a month and you can only pack one backpack. What are you bringing in that backpack? And that island is what the island looks like. So no questions. That's all. That's what it looks like. And yeah, just use your brain. And then I can see some like trees in there, so that might help you guys a little bit.
Teacher.
Yes.
Excuse me. I can answer either of the prompts, but
Yeah,
what
go
should
ahead.
I? No,
You can choose.
what should I pick? I don't know.
It's your
I can work with either of them.
I don't know. I would actually really like to hear number one, but after I want to hear number two too.
Okay.
So you could do quick.
Thank you. I would try to pick number one then. Assume you could work with the resources the world has right now.
Yeah,
What
so
are
no
some solutions you
intermediary.
have to solve world hunger? Teacher, can I like have a budget? Like a budget is a big thing
Yes.
when you're working with that. How much
So-
would be a budget?
Here's the thing. You okay, in this fake world, you're under just work under the assumption that you have control over like the entire world. So all the countries listen to whatever you say. So you can use how much ever. So I know you could use as much of the US GDP as you want, as much of China's, just use it all and combine it to that one thing. So that your entire budget is basically what the world has right now, and you have full control over the entire planet.
Assuming this would be like this, I have heard that a lot of funding goes towards the WHO, World Health Organization, which is already working on how to solve world hunger. But I have already heard that there's a lot of corruption in there, and a lot of the money is going to the higher class people's pockets or banks. So I would ideally try to stop. Teacher,
sorry,
excuse me, I had an interruption.
It's okay.
Can I continue?
Yes, of course.
I would ideally try to decrease the corruption rates in the WHO, and also like most of the countries that are actually living under the poverty line has a lot of resources, and they are always what's the word, exploited. They are always exploited beyond their limits, and those people work hard 16 hours a day, more than that probably. That's, I don't know, I can't even imagine how much rough would that be. But with if I were to go there, I would actually control the government's corruption and the WHO's corruption, because most of these countries, as much as I heard and the news tells me, most of those are based on corruption and probably corruption only, because most of those countries have unlimited resources like oil money, tar, diamonds, gold, anything. And
That's
they
true.
always just give them for pennies on the dime to just release it to other countries. That's how we get our electronics for so cheap. If I were to actually resource and give the value to some silicon that's over there, if I were to give that value to that countries, they would obviously be above the poverty line if this corruption wasn't here. Most of the money is not going to people's bellies or to the country's development. They are always in the pockets of the government officials. That's kind of what happened to our own country. I hate the politicians for that. We are like you dealing with power cuts every day. I had a power cut right before I came to this class.
Mhm.
Most of the people can't even live on this salary that they are getting now.
Yeah.
Most of the people are so hardly struggling because the salary hasn't increased. The dollar is inflating as hard as it can. Like
I
we are on
know.
the second place in the fastest inflating currencies in the world. Sri
Yeah.
Lanka on the second place against Venezuela. It's not fun.
I know.
Our family is conservative, so we don't really experience those issues. But there are some people, I don't know, my mom told me that some people get a 12,000 to I think it was like 50,000 their salary in our currency. Okay,
Mhm.
our current that salary, and they almost all of them go to rent, children's may no, it almost all goes to rent and just debts, loans, and they
Mhm.
are left with nothing at the end of the month.
Yeah.
So I would actually just I would not use a lot of the resources. I would direct the resources away from the politicians and into the country and reduce corruption. If I can completely stop corruption, that's what I would do to solve world hunger. Thank you
Oh
for
my
listening to
God.
me.
Thank you so much. What a great speech. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. So that is that's incredible. I actually I didn't even think of like attacking corruption first because I agree that that is probably at the core of most of the world's issues. Thank you so much for sharing. Oh wow, I don't even know. Okay. Okay, thank you so much for sharing. Um Nethala, I see you raised your hand, or Chamali, would you like to go? You can answer either prompt. Thank you so much, Esri, by the way. That was a great speech. Would anyone like to answer the second prompt? Esri, did you want to answer the second prompt too, or
If you like, teacher, I can answer the second prompt
yeah,
as well.
if you like? I remember you said you mentioned it earlier. I don't know if you still wanted, if you're still up to it.
I can, teacher. If you like to me to volunteer, I can answer. Can I volunteer, teacher?
Yes, of course. Yes.
You have to survive on a deserted island for a month and you can only pack one backpack. What are you bringing? The island seems to be, can I like base my structure, or should I just describe what I'm going to be packing in the bag?
You can
Or the
describe what you're
reasoning
gonna pack
behind it?
in the bag, and then you can also give us like a reasoning.
I would pack something like a live straw, which is a survival filter, and like a Switzerland army knife.
Mhm.
Switzerland army knife, a fire starter, and a sharp in like a small hatchet.
Mhm.
A small hatchet and some kind of, I don't know, sharpening tools. I think sharpening tools. And with these, I would think with the resources that I can see right now, I would take some shoelaces or kind of strong laces and carabiners so that I can actually build some kind of, what is it? Some kind of shelter that I can live in if it rains or something.
Mhm.
And I can actually take the nets or build something using the resources that I have packed in my bags, and make a spear with the knife, and then go to fishing, because fish is like of a more reliable source in this
Mhm.
island, because I would imagine that this is built on a coral reef or some kind of a deserted island. So I would not think that in the center there would be actually dirt so that I can plant anything, dirt or
Mhm.
soil. I
Mhm.
think this would be a sandy island, so the only reasonable ones would be like coconuts and not much else. So I would actually live on something, fish and coconuts. Other than that, there isn't. If and I would pack clothes, a hatchet, and a knife. That's what I would pack in my backpack. Thank you for
Awesome.
listening.
Thank you for sharing. Right. Oh my gosh, we're ahead. I'm so sorry. We are already past our time. But next week we're going to go over having a formal conversation, and we'll like simulate having an English job interview with each other. It can be for I don't know. I'll choose the job that you guys will be applying for. And then we're also going to talk about our favorite shows and movies next week. For homework, I want you to read another English article and then tell the class what it was about next week. And then I also want you to watch some form of English TV so we can discuss it next week too, in our conversation practice. And then again, I want you to keep having as much English conversations as possible. That's like the best way to practice English. So yeah, so the one thing I want you to focus on is the English article, and then or book, either one. And then make sure you watch some kind of English TV so we can talk about it next week, okay?